So there's a great article from Christianity Today talking about bringing the evangel, leave the ism.
Oh.
Okay, that's very weird. I'm going to break this down, but they start off with something kind of fun, and it's looking at old school evangelism techniques. Like, how were you guys taught to evangelize? Because usually it's Christians are taught how to do this.
Starting with the 4 spiritual laws.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, we kind of learned a few other things like evangelism explosion, 2 questions.
2 questions.
Yeah.
Are you a sinner?
If
Jesus saves?
If you died tonight, where would you go?
Good heavens.
And then why? I don't think that's
you didn't
quite
pay attention
right,
in that class, I guess.
No. and the Romans road, Romans 3:23, all have sinned, come short of the glory of God. 6:23, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ, his son. And, those follow that path. Those are some ways. But then sometimes you're taught just the simplest way is to tell your story.
That's what Ron Hutchcraft says, right?
Yeah. How Christ changed your life. And then, people can't argue about that unless they want to just say, well, you're crazy.
No,
maybe I am.
Explain this one to me. They recalled in this article memorizing the Romans road and cinching knots in beaded wordless bracelets. What does that mean?
I remember the wordless book, but not a wordless bracelet.
Was there some kind of
I remember the bracelet.
What's that?
So this is how well this tool worked. I have no clue what any of the colors mean, but I know it was a multicolored bracelet. Each color had a specific meaning, and you were supposed to remember the colors and lead people through the sinner's prayer or something. I
it was
don't know.
Red for the blood of Christ.
Yep.
Maybe white for being washed new.
Yeah,
I think there was a clear bead. Do you remember that?
I think so.
I don't know what that meant.
But so it was designed to remind you, or you're supposed to use it as an illustration?
I think both, probably. You could use it as an illustration, but you're the one wearing it. So.
Sounds like none of you actually did it.
No, I didn't.
I was 8.
Did you ever do the Romans road with somebody, Ron?
I think I did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Well, it really sticks in my memory, so it must have gone pretty well.
Stop grilling Ron.
Now, how were millennials taught?
Like Ron said, just to share our own story.
So you just walk up to someone, "Hi, I'm Lauren. I'd like to tell you my story about Jesus changing my life forever."
No, it's more like a personal relationship with someone.
So when you were a
friend or
kid,
family member.
they weren't doing formulaic things anymore.
Not as much. No.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That surprises me.
That's good. In my way of thinking.
Sure. Well, I mean, a couple of years ago, I suggested perhaps gospel tracts are outdated, and I was essentially, I mean, what's the right word? I was bludgeoned.
Oh.
Yeah.
You remember this?
I was trying to think up
Not
a
sure
word
that
that
was the right
included
word.
chick for Jack Chick's name, but you were chickified.
Oh, emails, text messages, "How dare you" was I think a common quote,
Yeah.
Well, in today's culture, when every piece of mail is junk, it's maybe not the best idea to give people more paper to throw away.
Lauren said that.
Mm-hmm.
This time you can get. Just kidding. Don't. Yell at
Please,
me.
Come for me. I don't care.
Don't go after my friend. Come after me. Daria, how is Gen Z taught to evangelize?
I mean, other than that one time when I was so young it almost escapes memory with the bracelet, I don't know that we were.
You weren't taught how to do it?
I don't have any clear memories of this is something you need to be doing and here's how to do it.
Huh. But you knew the concept that you're supposed to share your faith in some way.
I think so. I remember I had a good friend as a kid that I would invite to church, and she came with us quite often. But I don't think it was something that was ever really stressed in Sunday school.
Yeah, I mean, I went to some classes in probably the early 2000s. There was a real famous team of people who would encourage you to go pick a random stranger somewhere and give them the 10 Commandments, try to convince them they're a sinner. If they agree they're a sinner, then you give them the gospel. But I think controversially, this team of individuals thought that if someone didn't agree they were a sinner, you don't give them the gospel. You're making a face.
I don't like that.
Why not? I mean, they were like, you just walk away. You're like, oh, all right, see ya.
Well, if you feel like you have been called by Christ to share your faith in that moment, you don't get to judge if someone's ready or not to hear it.
Right. Yeah, but they would be like, you ever stolen something? And most people would be like, yeah, as a kid I did. So what do you call that? What are you then?
And yeah, that's like
A thief? That's right. You're a thief. And then you go down all of them.
That's so patronizing and confrontational.
I got to tell you, when you go to the conference, they show videos of people actually being transformed by this. There are people who were struck by their own sin, never had it framed that way. And at least in the video, they gave their life to Christ in that moment. Now, I watched that and was like totally compelled by it, but never had the courage to do it.
Yeah, I think it takes a certain type of person and personality to do that.
I also don't know how many times it didn't work and they didn't share that video.
Right.
Because I agree with you, Daria. I feel that feels very confrontational. I think the technique that strategy of using the 10 Commandments to help someone understand their sin might work,
It could.
but I would rather do it interpersonally, I think. The one I don't share super often is I actually, Sarah was on the fence when I first met her. I don't recommend missionary dating, so I don't bring this up very, very often. But she was so pretty. Still is. But
You're
anyway,
making it worse. Just keep telling a story.
she, after a date or two, I actually gave her a 4 Spiritual Laws pamphlet in the Bible and went through it where there was actually, essentially it was kind of like, well, I mean, it's not going to last long if you don't buy into this. You're making a face at me. What's the face?
Just listening.
She loves the Lord now.
Yes.
It's what the Lord needed
It's great.
at that moment. I wasn't the best at it, but here's the cool part of the story. Have I ever told you this?
I don't know. You haven't said it yet.
So I told her 2 stories. I told her about Saul on the road to Damascus and then another one. I think it was about Mary Magdalene or something. And so she calls me. We talk a few days later. I'm just waiting for her. I've been praying like crazy. And she says to me, what was that guy's name again that you tell me about on that road? I was like, Paul. She goes, nah, never mind. I'm like, whoa. What? What do you mean, never mind? Well, I sat down, opened up the Bible you gave me, and it opened up right to the story that sounded just like that, but it was about a guy named Saul. I was like, oh, no, that's him. But she literally sat down. This is what the Lord did. Sat down. She opens up Scripture, and her eyes fall perfectly on that moment on the story that I told her.
Wow.
Only God can do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the second time she opened her Bible, went to the other story I told her. Again, only God can write those kind of stories.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Before the break, we were chatting about evangelism and how we all were taught different methods that we rarely used. And let's add to that a layer of some research. So in 2022, as Ron mentioned, the group Evangelism Explosion and Lifeway did a study. 35% of respondents would be less open to continuing a faith conversation that employed pamphlets, brochures, or phone apps. Like, if you start bringing up, hey, I got this pamphlet, 35% of people are like, I'm out.
Surprised it's that low.
I know.
I mean, I'm a Christian, and I get mad when people just hand me pamphlets and send me on my way. It's like, I would actually like to have a conversation about this.
Well, and one of the better examples would be Jehovah's Witnesses have lots of paperwork.
Oh, lots of paper.
And if they give you the Watchtower.
Yes.
And Awakening, I think, is another one.
I mean, I've had times where I feel like I got to throw this out, like fast. Like I just, you know. Like, and I think Christians feel that way. Why do we think that we're exempt from that feeling from other people?
Or
like,
not. And I also, to me, it's kind of a cop-out.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to actually talk to you. Here's a pamphlet.
Here's a pamphlet. I don't have to actually share any personal experiences. I don't actually have to say the words of the gospel to you.
When before I got married, I lived in an apartment with a friend, and it was a lower income apartment area. It was, kind of the rough side of town. I was not home, but my roommate was. A local church went around and started dropping off boxes of food to everybody. And first, we did not need it. We were doing fine, but they dropped the box of food and they run. My roommate was like chasing after them, like, "Hey, like, where are you from? Like, let's have a conversation about this." They left. They did not want to speak to her.
It's like Ding Dong Ditch.
Yes, with food that we didn't even know how to prepare. Like, there was a spaghetti squash in there. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this?
And that could have been a great discussion.
It could have been, but they ran.
I had some people come to my house a couple months ago, and they were asking me if I knew where I was going after I died, and I said yes. And they asked me how I knew, and I told them, and they just like really didn't believe me.
Oh, no.
And so much so I said, "Have you ever heard of Moody Bible Institute?" They said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I went to school there. I know I am saved. Thank you so much."
Did they stop then?
Yes, they did. It's just they really didn't believe me.
That's not good evangelism either.
No.
No, not at all.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know, guys. One of my least favorite methods was I almost took a job at a radio station in Missouri years ago. Not while I was here, don't worry. And
Gossip, huh?
I went on their website, and because of this promotion, I was like, can't work there. The drive-through difference. Have you heard about this?
No.
Mm-mm.
It was something I think a Minneapolis station started. But here's what you do. You go to the drive-through, whatever the drive-through is.
Like
When
an
you get to
actual
pay-
drive-through of a restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you go, hey, I'm going to pay for the person behind me.
Pay it forward, sure.
So tell them I'm paying for it and give them this. And you like give a gospel tract, like it's called like the drive-through difference from Jesus or something. And you
Once
then
again, that's a cop-out. You're making someone else do it.
right? How impersonal.
You don't have to show your face. You don't have to show your eyes. You don't have to say anything about who God is.
That's my least favorite thing. I mean, the person's guaranteed can throw it out. Just going to go, thank you.
Thank you for my free drink.
I was like, I
sandwich.
can't do this because I don't like that. I don't like the impersonal nature of it.
Right. And then what happens, like you're a person by yourself. I was going to say a single person, but you could be married, just driving alone. And you want to pay for one beverage at Starbucks or one ice cream treat at Dairy Queen. And then the person behind you has a minivan full of kids. And you're not going to pay, it would be $5 for yours, and instead it's $50 for theirs.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. So it breaks the chain.
Yeah. Ron's breaking that chain immediately.
Oh yeah. I'll give you, maybe an extra $5.
You've already done your time paying for kids in the car.
Amen.
Preach, sister. You only can have off the dollar menu. So another stat to go with this, of course, it's interesting. A majority of Americans are open to faith conversations, but most of their Christian friends, quote, rarely talk about their faith. This is the era we live in.
Yeah.
We're all kind of not
Nervous.
super excited about the pamphlets. People don't want the pamphlets. They're open, but we don't know. We don't want to talk to them. We can't. We're scared.
Mhm.
And then you have, in 2019, Barna reported that 73% of millennials feel equipped to share their faith. A big majority of millennials are like, yeah, I know how to do that. Close to half, 47%, aren't sure they even agree with the ethics of evangelism.
Interesting.
They're like, I'm not certain the way that we do this is ethical.
The way that we do it, or
The
just
way.
doing it at all? They think it's okay, or are they saying,
I can't say for sure, Ron. I think probably both.
yeah, because I know there are some people who think that, their beliefs are fine if they want to believe them, and they would let them just march off to hell rather than offer them the free way to salvation.
Yeah. No, I think it's a little bit of both. So they propose a total mentality shift. And part of it's accepting the way that that Gen Z and Alpha approach the world. Because so much of our approach to evangelism ties to the individual concept. Like, Jesus changed my life. He can change your life. And this person suggests that the way the world has gone and the way social media has changed everything and the way that, globalization's changed, that the shift in culture has been more dramatic than we realized. That they presuppose that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are more of a shame honor culture.
Oh, interesting.
That they're more collectivist in their ideas. And that doing the individual thing isn't going to work because they don't even view the world that way. They view the world in shame honor, like Asian countries. I really want to get some of your thoughts on this. This article from Christianity Today is ultimately saying we've all been taught some methods of evangelism that not only may not be effective today based on the way culture has gone, but none of us are doing them anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, non-Christians are reporting they're open, but nobody's telling them. Their Christian friends don't say anything about their faith. And so there's something off. Now, a mentality shift is being proposed. And here's a quote I want us to chew on here for a moment.
Okay.
One youth pastor said this: many young people today are geared towards saving face, or perhaps via cancel culture, finding ways of shaming people who are considered a threat to their social group. Rather than revealing Jesus as the antidote to a personal guilt they don't feel, how might they respond to him as a communal shame lifter?
Interesting.
Like our culture has become a shame and honor culture. Now, let's just chew on that for a minute. To what extent is that true in your experience?
I would really have to think about that.
I kind of do see that with cancel culture. That kind of would make sense.
Yeah, I think it does.
With how you either do the exact right thing or everyone shuns you. That would be an honor or shame.
When I think the way young people are using social media, like a Snapchat, I'm telling you, like I had one of my kids, a peer took a video of them in class, sitting kind of hunched over, and tried to do like an epic burn of my kid.
And then sends it to everyone.
Sends it to everyone.
Contacts, yeah.
And so my kid had to then respond.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a individual achievement type thing. It was a shame honor. It was, I want to not be shamed in front of my peers.
Yeah.
So again, if you're not familiar, that's not the ethos of American culture, nor has it been. It's an individualistic one. The individual is first, community is, I don't know, somewhere else. But for many cultures throughout history, the community is first, in fact, more important than the individual. What's the Christian ethic?
The community.
Yeah.
You said it kind of funny, though. Why did you say it like that?
Because we don't like to think that way, but it is.
Why would you say that? What's your evidence for that?
That the community is more important?
Yeah.
Well, in Bible times, they lived a life together. And in Acts, they lived life together. It was about being in a community. It wasn't about what can this Christian life, this Christian walk do for me?
Right.
It's how can this Christian walk benefit our community? And how can I, as a Christian, benefit others? It's not the fruits of the Spirit are for other people. They're not for us.
Right. And I don't know if you're an individualist, pure in a pure sense, where you're like, it's about me and my rights and my faith. What do you do with consider others more important than yourself?
Yeah, love God, love others.
Yeah, the greatest commandment, Paul's exhortation. I don't know what you can do with those. Neither of them are about you. In fact, one of them minimizes you. Mm-hmm. So, I think that there is, in some sense, the way social media works with younger generations, not older, but younger, it is a shame and honor thing. Could there be something here where we have to shift our thinking in evangelism, and it's less about, I need to convince you, but more we need to approach it as a Jesus is an antidote to shame? Is that theologically true, do you think?
Is Jesus an antidote to shame?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know where it would lie of our corporate shame versus individual shame.
Tell me more. Tell me more about that.
I don't know how it would go telling someone, oh, well, Jesus is the ultimate shame lifter of all, which it is true. I just don't know how far that goes with trying to tell one person the gospel.
Yeah, they had one quote in this piece from an Asian American, because many Asian cultures are not individualistic. They're more group-centric. So in an article entitled How to Share Jesus So He's Actually Good News, Asian American Tony Wee writes of how the guilt-innocence gospel framing failed to reach him growing up in a collectivist family. Even in his youth, Wee cared far more about the shame or honor of his community than about his own individual guilt. And like we, most of my own teenagers and their friends, this person wrote, hardly seem concerned by personal guilt. But shame they understand.
Yeah, because you bring shame upon your whole community, your whole family, if you do something wrong.
But this is enough where this reframing is so dramatic to the American mind. It's like, I don't even know if I can wrap my head around this.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can. And I think it'd be a sharing of the gospel to the whole family, not just the individual.
And really kind of, I mean, our whole approach, all of our strategies talk to the individual person about their individual guilt. And like this Asian American Christian was saying, it's like, that doesn't matter to me. I care much more about my view in my community. It's hard to even connect to that as an American,
is.
isn't
It
it?
is.
Yeah.
We don't care. We have our little house in our suburbs or whatever, and we don't know our neighbors. We don't care.
Right. And it used to be, I don't know, maybe 30s and 40s. It's that far back. But family was far more important, especially if you were from any of the specific heritages. Like the Italians, they were big on family, and you got together all the time, and, you don't bring shame on the family name. The Greeks, you get together and you spray Windex on your elbows.
You don't eat meat? We'll have lamb.
Yeah. So it used to be much more important. I'm not sure now. I think we've gotten much farther away from family.
Because of the ethos of American culture is about the individual.
Yeah, you're describing individual ethnicities there, Ron, but I think everybody except, multi-generational, born and raised in this country Americans feel that way, or at least did at one point.
Mm-hmm.
What's wild is we all seem to agree with there could be something here that younger generations are more concerned about shame and honor than individual guilt. Like, we seem to think that might be true. I'm not certain I even understand how that changes how we evangelize. Because it's such a shift.
I don't know what the approach, how we would change evangelism.
The 4 spiritual laws, the Romans Road, all of them deal with the individual.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. I'm not sure I agree with the direction they're taking this, because I personally haven't witnessed it in my own generation.
And Bible times, biblical culture was an honor and shame culture.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to really think through, are there any stories that are sharing the gospel or sharing who Jesus is in a communal way rather than an individual way? And nothing's coming up top of mind.
Would Paul's sermon in Acts to, I believe it was the Greeks, count?
Maybe.
Yeah, he appealed to a group of Stoic philosophers, right, about their unknown gods and appealed to their intellect.
Yeah.
And then after Pentecost, Peter preached to the masses.
But it's not so much as preaching to multiples, it's how are you telling it? Is it about your personal sin issues and your personal relationship with Christ, or is it about a communal shame?
I don't know. It's fascinating.
Because that was an honor and shame culture, so that should be our key place to look.
Well, we do see multiple instances of one person being saved and then their whole family.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I will say as well, I think you never remove the portion of the gospel that deals with individual guilt. That can't be removed, of course. But this may be a shift in the entry point. I mean, I think you get there eventually, but yeah, I have to chew on this for a while. I'll be thinking about it for quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, some people would go, no, I like my way I used to do it. Why not reimagine how to do it if it's going to bring people into saving faith?
Right.
If it's going to work, I love it.
Amen.
As D.L. Moody once said to someone who criticized his way of evangelizing, he said, I like my way of evangelizing better than your way of not evangelizing.
Yeah, he's kind of sassy.
Yeah, it's true.
Thanks for watching. Do you need more Ron in your life? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new video.